So, my wonderful friends out there, we have a special one today because we have one, Gwen, my incredible human who works with me on this. But today, we have the one and only Jesse Richmond, who is a dear friend of mine from a long time back. I remember him when he was a tiny little kid, multiple world champion, Redbull King there, crowns. I would say I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think he's the most decorated, hands down kite surfer on the planet. Whether it's racing, waves, freestyle, big air, a race around a buoy, you name it, swimming race. I don't know. Jesse will smoke everybody and doing it with a smile and literally just an awesome human. So, Jesse, welcome to the show and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, buddy, thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I definitely remember I was actually thinking about this a lot yesterday because I was getting excited for this show, and I was just reminiscing on looking at you at King of the Bay in 2004 when you had Leroy on the bottom of your board and bright and baby blue and hot pink, and I was just like, this guy is the man. And what I really appreciate about those memories is, I remember competing with you, and there were events where you did really well. There were events that you didn't do as well, and to me that made zero difference because everybody on the beach was like, "Oh, Damien's the man." And you just had this stoke and this vibe that I've tried to embody throughout my career. So I appreciate the inspiration, my friend.
Well, that was very heavy words, and it means a lot coming from you. And I remember those days. I would say to all the upcoming athletes out there, yes, I painted the biggest letters I could possibly paint on the bottom of my board because I thought that was the best way to mark it, was to just be like, bam. And anyhow, note
It
to
was
self,
awesome.
maybe not the greatest thing, but you could do it.
Hey, I still
Um,
remember it.
yeah, okay, so yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
the,
I don't
the
yeah,
remember
strategy worked.
the
I don't remember
strategy
the
worked.
word that I was
Yeah.
behind.
So thank you for that, Jess. So what we want to get into with you today, and I'm just kind of, we like to kind of dig deep in, especially incredible humans like you. And you've had a lot of changes in your life, incredible changes in your life. And I guess I want to ask my first question to you, which is going to be a little tricky for a lot of people. And the reason I ask this is it's unique because everybody has in life dreams and goals. And I think you coming off, I think, how old were you when you started kite surfing? 8 years old, 9 years old?
9, yeah.
Nine. So he started 9 years old, just blew the doors off everybody. But starting at such a young age, my question to you I want to ask is so everybody has a dream. And I want to say, okay, you had a dream. But some dreams, when you dream, do you dream like knowing that it's accomplishable, I guess, because what I'm trying to get at is I could say, hey, I want to be successful in the future and make money. Well, maybe I just make $100,000. I'm good with that. I was successful. I accomplished my dream. Now, I was shooting for 1 billion, but I made 100. So I guess my question to you is, when you make a goal or you make a dream, is it an accomplishable dream, or are you kind of open for change? And I know it's a vague question, but I'm curious to see what your reaction would be.
Totally. Well, I would attribute a huge amount of the way that I think today based on this thought or this notion of when I was 9, I got into kiting and I didn't really have any goals. I just saw this sport that was really exciting. And then when I would say maybe 11 or 12, I started to see this group of athletes that had so much fun every day. And just the scene that they had on the tour, everything looked to me like I was like, I want to be one of these guys. Like I want to be here. And that kind of evolved into I want to be world champion. And I don't I don't think it was ever like a goal that I imagined with if it was obtainable or not. I just was like, this is what I want to do. And when I was 15, I was my first full year on the tour, and that was the year that I won the overall title. And I think winning that title kind of changed the way that I viewed the world, because I always imagined, okay, if I do this, my life will be amazing. And let's say the day after I won the title, I woke up and I was like, oh, reality is exactly the same. Nothing's changed. I'm still me. Like, all right. And I think from that point forward, I kind of realized that I can set goals, I can have different dreams, I can have different visions, but the reality in which I am in right now is the one that I'm going to continue to stay in. And it's not something that's gonna make the difference in my day. It's the way that I view the day, the way that I view the world, that's gonna create that day where I'm like, I am the man. I have all the girls, all the money, all the this, all of that, whatever it is that one desires. It's there's nothing externally that can help you get there. It's all internal. So I think, yeah, figuring that out at an early age helped me create new goals that I look at. I'm like, all right, I can do this. And then, yeah, now I definitely look at goals as a direction. And if I have to change directions at a certain point, cool. Like it's all good.
And the reason I asked you this question was because I believed that it would be something like this. Because what I take from this right here is, first things first, Jesse goes out and enjoys every minute of everything, whatever it may be, on a direction, but every new door can open and create something absolutely spectacular. And I think that's really well said, because, I would say to a lot of people out there, if you dream big, but sometimes that dream leads into a different direction. And speaking about kind of leading into different directions, it sounds like, you're at an interesting time in life. One, congratulations on your ongoing family, which I have my little nugget. So it's the coolest thing in the world. But I'm curious to see how important family is to you, and what does that mean to you now?
I mean, family's always been everything, in the sense of like, I feel like another realization I had between the years of maybe 15 to 19 was, what's the point of any of it if you don't get to share it with amazing people? And I think traveling by myself really helped me realize that I don't need other people to be happy, but it sure is more fun if you have awesome friends around. And my family, I'm, my best friends ever. So I'm pretty excited. We have our 2-year-old Blue, and then a little boy on the way, due in December. So I don't think that it's necessarily changing my, like, what I want to do with life. I still have huge goals and dreams in kiting, and I still have all these desires to get out there and do really radical things and have a great time and push the limits of the sport. I just view it now as the time in between sessions where I'm hanging out with my family is just continuing to get more and more magical, and maybe cutting into my social life a little bit, between creating a family and COVID. It's definitely hacked away at the dinners and all the sorts of social gatherings, but I don't care at all. Like, I have my good friends. We see each other here and there, and we'll always be around. So yeah, family is the most beautiful thing ever. I mean, how's it been for you?
Oh man, it's truly spectacular. I would say a shout out to your whole family there, your brother, your dad. I miss everybody, your sister. Yeah, it's exactly what you just said. I would say for anybody out there, family, I think we all take it for granted. You can yell at the ones closest to you for sure, because they're going to love you. Yet some random dude may say something and you're like, man, I'm going to take that into consideration and I'll throw all my money on Bitcoin or whatever it may be. Yet you'll like yell at your brother or sister, and like, they're going to love you. So cherish it. And the best thing you're saying, Jesse, is living in the moment, because I think sharing it, we don't know when our time is up, and that just as well as many. And let's kind of backtrack 2020, I think is when it was, when you broke your leg, before, I think it was the King of the Air, correct? Is that right?
Well, I broke my leg. Let's see, that was the
Was that
end of
2020?
the end of 2020, December, the day after Christmas.
And the question I want to ask there, you can go a little more in depth, but what I'm curious to share with viewers is overcoming a setback like that, because everybody has setbacks in life, but when you're at a pinnacle in the sport and you have a huge setback, I guess my question to you mentally, because nobody ever talks about mental questions, did you ever fear you would never make it back, or did you know you were going to make it back? That's my question.
Honestly, this is probably a better question for you. But my experience with this last injury was pretty chill. I've had, I don't know, I can't count the amount of injuries that I've had. A lot pretty minor and a few pretty serious ones over the years. And I don't know, I'd say when I was kind of back at that phase of, I think, 17, 18, I had a few pretty severe injuries. And that was when I kind of would question. I'd say the first really big one, I tore my quad, and it was a serious injury, and it definitely like messed with my head mentally, because I'd kind of recover and then have a setback and recover and have a setback, and it ended up being 9 months before I was really back on the water feeling good. And yeah, just that whole process of feeling like, you can't move, you can't walk, I'll never get better, this is never going to get better, to then slowly seeing progress and slowly embracing the recovery period, and kind of changing the mindset of like feeling sorry for yourself to, okay, what progress can I make today? And I feel like making that shift was, essential, and basically propelled me to like, okay, I got this, and I got back, and before I knew it, I was out kiting, and honestly, like, felt like I never left. And that
Looked like you never left either.
well, I mean, that lesson that I learned that would have been, I think, 2010. That was right when I signed with Nash too, which was pretty funny. I literally signed on to them, and I was still like, the first 6 months I couldn't ride, but it was just, I don't know. I knew after I kind of like started to see progress, I was like, all right, this is gonna work. And since then, including this last injury, that was probably the biggest bone that I've broken. I don't know. I knew as soon as it happened, I'm like, all right, like, get to safety, like get to a safe place, and then from that point on, it's like, this is easy. We do everything we can every day, and we'll get better. And some doctors will say it's going to be years before you're back on the water doing your thing. You just got to look at them and smile and say, awesome, thank you, and know that in 6 months I'm going to be out there, and in 9 months I'm going to be as strong as ever.
So just kind of believing that you're going to get there was always kind of your biggest help. The only reason I'm asking, there's a lot of people that do have injuries, or maybe a bad back or whatever it may be out there, or they're learning wing foiling or something, and they're struggling because of their knee or something. And what I'm kind of taking from this is, take the little gains, even if it's like, I climbed on the board today.
I mean, that's where, like, when you and I, Gwen, I'm not sure when you learned how to kite. What year did you start kiting?
I started kiting in 2011.
Gwen doesn't kite.
So then Damien and I experienced something really differently, where it probably took, I don't know how long it took you to learn, but me, honestly, it took like 6 months to stand up on a board. And that was because the gear was so terrible, and it was so dangerous, and it was out of control. But it took like 6 months to stand up, probably a year to stay upwind. And that built such a foundation, so that now, like, I watch people learn to kite in 3 days, or I watch pro riders that have only been riding for 2 years, and they know how to do all these crazy technical tricks, but you see them at a certain point struggle because they don't know how to fly their kite the same way like you and I do. And it's so fascinating to see that. And that's from the foundation that we built. So even though it took us so long to learn, with all of that time, we built so much experience and so much knowledge and understanding of how to intuitively fly this kite. And same thing with our injuries, where it's like if we're moving in the right direction, or we're trying, even if the progress is tiny, I feel like it's just slowly pushing in that direction. And it, like everyone says, it's not the sprinter who wins the endurance race. It's the guy that just continues to go and continues to go. And I feel like life is an endurance race. Like we're in this for the long run, especially when it comes to our bodies and injuries and strength. It's, if you try to go to the gym super hardcore 10 days in a row, it's not nearly as beneficial as, consistently over 10 weeks. So
Where do you get like inspiration, or like do you get inspiration from somebody? Is there somebody that's kind of like has been your role model and like helping you through like being able to react like this when things happen in life? Or maybe a book, or like how did you learn all of that, just by yourself? Or
I mean, I feel like I stumbled into a lot of it by myself, but I don't know, looking at in my sport, there's tons of athletes that I've drawn endless inspiration from. But I would say with regarding injuries, one guy would be Travis Pastrana, who's, I don't know how many bones he's broken, but it's probably in the hundreds at this point. And he still goes out and does the craziest things ever. And also he's built a really cool brand and a really cool vibe, and just a whole lifestyle around this energy that I love. And then, I mean, when I'm like working out, I listen to people like Jocko Willink, this star Navy SEAL commando who's just a nutcase. And I think he takes it way, 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 way too far, especially from an athlete's perspective, but and just in the sense of forcing it. But I do like one of his mottos where when anything goes bad, good. And it's just like when anything goes wrong, it's a good thing. And I think that so many people, and myself included, just anytime anything goes wrong, we feel, frustrated or sorry for ourselves. And getting over that and realizing that it's a good thing is awesome. And that's what's helped me progress in my kiting, is you don't learn a trick, you learn how not to do a trick. And you learn how to crash and ride away, and you learn how to like try a trick and crash and not break your bones. And you just continue to learn that until eventually you like stumble across, oh, that's how to land it. Awesome. Cool.
That's very well said. And Gwen needs some help because he's doing front rolls with the foil and he keeps cutting his lines.
Oh man, the foil is such a scary element. You guys are nuts. I mean, board offset you're doing, or you're spinning.
We're nuts. Come on. I see you at Jaws freaking boosting off that, 50, 60 foot face.
That's simple though. That's simple. There's no, I'm not riding around with a razor sharp sword, throwing it at my face, trying to do loops and things.
Well, I was just inspired by some other foil people, so I thought I'd try it.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Why not?
No, well said though. I mean, everything comes with working at it. And I think a lot of people, wing foiling or kite foiling or big wave surfing, whatever it may be that you're trying to do in life. Look, it takes, like Jesse said, and I 100% agree with what you said about there's a lot of kids evolving in sports these days, and they'll learn a niche, right? They'll learn whatever that may be, a handle pass or whatever it is, and they'll be incredible at it. But yet, like, they'll still struggle with like which way the wind's blowing out of or whatever. And you're like, how on earth do you not know this? I drug into like 15 bushes and trees and beaches here and there because I didn't know it. I had to learn the hard way. And I think what you're saying there to everybody out there learning wing foiling or kite surfing or whatever is you got to take the bad or the learning experiences and take it as a good, just like you said, good, because that's how you learn. I mean, if everything was easy, you wouldn't learn and you wouldn't enjoy it, I don't think.
And I mean, that translates into every walk of life, like I've also found it interesting that some of the times, like throughout my career, if there's been a time where I've been struggling financially, It's when I'm really struggling, when all of a sudden I like get pushed into this warp drive where a month disappears and I've never like been that productive and like done, made so many things happen, so many different things happen. And I think it's, when I'm cruising, when everything's working, it's like, it's easy, no worries. There, the motivation isn't quite there, but when you're pushed up against a rock, you're like, all right, there's, no choice. We have to do this. And I think that's such a crazy moment, and that's such something that we should embrace and appreciate. And so many people look at those moments as, scary and why me?
So
Yeah.
do you find yourself like sometime getting into a routine, and then you realize, like, maybe that's you are not getting the most out of yourself if you get into it, and then you force yourself to get outside of your comfort zone and challenge yourself? Is that something that's driving your decisions?
Dude, absolutely. I mean, especially from like a training perspective, is if I go to the gym and I do the things that are fun, like I can do, tons and tons of pull-ups because that's my body type, that's what I love, that's what I like doing, and like I can go to the gym and do upper body stuff to the end of time and I'm happy. But I'm like, no, that's not what's going to help me. Like that I need to continue doing that, but I need to do all of the things that I freaking hate. And it's like then coming into winter, we have to do all of the breath holds, and you don't want to do the breath holds. Like it is nice to push your comfort zone, meaning I like to expand on the area that feels really, really good. So if you keep on doing a breath hold and you start breathing when you want to breathe, eventually you can grow that area so that it's never unpleasant. But it is really good at times to be like, I'm going to push it to as far as I can, as hard as I can go, just because I'll realize that it's not that bad. And I'll get through it. I'll be like, all right, that was cool. That was fine. Like, no worries. And the whole goal is to have the hardest training days, like in a controlled environment, be more intense than when you're out in the elements when it does actually matter and there is, life-threatening situations. So I definitely like to change things up and try to do the things that I don't want to do.
Here's an interesting one for you, Jess. Have you ever been out, we'll call it Jaws, or been out, maybe heavy conditions, kite surfing, whatever it may be, and you chose to take the day off and say it wasn't right for me? Have you ever had one of those days?
For sure. I mean, there's in every session that I have in, let's say, Jaws, like I go with how I feel. And I would say I don't think I've ever just flat out said I'm not going to ride today. But I have, at any point looked at a session and been like, oh, like I'm making mistakes. I'm not in the right place. I don't feel 100%. Like, let's cruise. Let's take some of the smaller waves, or let's just watch everybody else kind of get these awesome waves. I had one really funny experience that led into probably the worst hold down I've ever had, where I went out to Jaws on the ski, and we go out there on a jet ski, 3 of us. I have a driver and then my buddy Patri and I. And so we have 3 guys on the ski plus our sled, full like 6 feet tall of gear tied down. And then we pump up a kite on the back. And I pumped up a kite and I basically get it. And I hear this little I'm like, no, I only brought 1 kite. Like, no. I'm like, okay, this is fine. I roll up my kite, we get Patri out there, and then we go around to like we're gonna figure this out. And I go to every boat, and I basically am like, do you guys have an extra kite? Because Robbie Nash was out there, Kai Lenny was out there. I know they have kites, and they're like, no, we don't have any extras. I was like, but you brought a kite bag. In that kite bag, there's a repair kit. So I jumped on one of the boats. And I spent like an hour pulling a bladder out, finding it, putting a little patch on. I was like, yes, I actually finally pump it up. I'm like, no freaking way. It's holding. I'm like, I don't hear anything. I'm like, this is going to happen. And meanwhile, I'm watching Patri and Nicolo and all these guys get crazy waves. This was the day that Niccolo ended up jumping up and karate kicking the lip. And eventually I get everything put back in. I pump up the kite. It's totally hard. I'm like, this is going to happen. And then just boom. And there must have been like a twist at the end of the bladder or something. And the whole thing completely exploded. I was like, okay, like, let's hear this. Gotcha. Today is not my day. Thank you. My buddy who was the boat captain was like, here's a beer. I'm like, all right, perfect. Sit down, kind of watch and enjoy. And then Victor Lopez, one of Kai's safety drivers, who's a total legend, he comes up. He's like, Jesse, you want me to tow you into a wave quickly? Like, we got a few minutes before we go. And I was like, sure. And I literally jumped off the boat, like within 10 seconds of like getting wet after totally being done for the day. He whipped me into this absolute bomb. And I was like, okay, this is my one wave for the day. Make it count. So I like start to fade really deep and I start to lose my balance. I'm like, no. And I'm just like falling backwards and just barely with my toes pulling up and around. But in that moment, I was like, I am so deep. I'm like, the only option is to try to pull into this barrel. And I just try to pull into it. And all of a sudden I'm upside down looking like through the barrel at like all the boats in the channel, just starting to flip. I'm like, here we go. And basically took one of the gnarliest beatings I've ever taken. But I'm like, all right, I'll come up. And I'm supposed to come up. I'm waiting to come up. I'm waiting to come up. I'm waiting to come up. I'm like, this is not good. This has been way too much time that I haven't made it to the surface. Finally, I make it to the surface as I'm about to breathe, boom, the next one on the head. And that at that point it turns into a real psychedelic experience where you're just like, oh, it's no longer a fight now. You're just like, this is crazy. Like, I'm really getting to like into another dimension right now. I don't even care about breathing. I'm just, wow, what an experience. And finally surfaced and made it, jumped on the back of a ski and went over to the boat. And it was the funniest thing because I was gone from the boat for about 2 minutes. And I sit back up onto the boat and I'm just like on another planet. Like, all right, I'm good. That day was good. And I don't know. I didn't necessarily hair out like your question, but it was just a fascinating experience to see, how you can't fight these days. You can't fight these things. All you can kind of do is go with it and embrace whatever comes your way.
Note to self, bring repair kit with you everywhere.
Absolutely.
All you kite surfers out there.
Oh, man.
Maybe the next video we're going to make is how to repair your kite at Jaws.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have Matt Elsasser chiming in. One, what'd you do to your face? Which we'll laugh. And then at what age do you plan to grow up?
Oh, well, I can answer that second one. Definitely never. My brother at different times throughout my life has always said, like, dude, when are you going to wake up from this little dream world that you're in? I'm like, why would I do that? This is and then my face, I have this I was a little workshop downstairs, and I have like this container full of all these spare parts. And I opened up the lid, hooked it to the top, and then was looking in actually for some bladders and all these. I like all of my random little spare parts, and the lid came unhooked and kind of just slid down my face. And yeah, that was how I got this face injury. So
everybody was expecting like I was at Jaws and the bone hit me, but no, it was in your garage.
But I was racing too. I was going really fast, trying to get some stuff, trying to get out, and it was a good reminder to, hey, slow down. It's all good. Like you don't need to be in too much of a hurry, because when you're racing to get out there, that's when you end up hurting yourself. So
that's well said. This is a good question, just because you're one of the most knowledgeable people in kite surfing. Mike, what recommendations do you have for a new kiteboarder? There's so many kites, wings, foils, etc. It's hard to focus on one thing. What would be your general message for somebody out there that's looking to get in the sport, first and foremost, what would you tell them?
I mean, pretty much what we've been speaking about is embrace whatever comes and embrace that foundation building. Because if, the beginning phases of kiteboarding can be really frustrating. Definitely the beginning phases of winging I found extremely frustrating. But it's all part of the game, and everybody who's out there who's a rider, an athlete in any sport was a beginner and was a kook at some point. So embracing the kookery, I think, would be key, is asking people questions, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to like build your understanding of the sport is everything. I experienced this very well with paragliding. When I got into paragliding, it was just like, since it is such an understandably life-threatening sport where if you do something wrong, the consequences are huge. You would know all about this.
I know it very well. Yep. We losing Jesse? I think we got him there.
Landing zone. Everybody's constantly. Everybody. Did I break up? We good?
I think you're good. We got you now. We got you back.
You guys. Okay. But when paragliding, everybody at the landing zone is always looking at you saying, hey, with your landing, you should try this. Or, next time when you take off, try this. Or in the air, and talking about the most basic fundamental things, where in sports, maybe like surfing, people don't really talk about hey, next time you're taking off, you should try to think about this, or paddling out, go here, because I think it's considered uncool to need to ask people for advice. And that's where I'd say with all of these sports, just embrace the fact that if you don't know something, that's cool, that's fine, whatever. Like, ask people, try to figure it out. Don't just try to ignore it and figure it out the hard way when you don't necessarily need to.
Spot on. I mean, Mike, thanks for the question. You're doing it right now. You're asking one of the best in the world. And I would say, keep asking, talk to different dealers, take lessons. And I think the biggest thing that Jesse is saying that is spectacular, and that is you get good at something by putting the time in, no matter good or bad. And it sounds like, even with wing foiling, we'll call it, sounds like Jesse's learned just as hard as I learned getting started. I thought it'd be easy, and it took me forever to try to get up wing foiling. And share your insight there, Jess. How is that? So you can honestly say wing foiling is kind of challenging when you first start.
I mean, I absolutely love it now, and it's a challenge now to decide what sport I'm gonna do, which is awesome. There are definitely days that are more favored for kiting or wing foiling, but beginning, I was like immediately like, I'm gonna take my prone surf foil board, which is tiny, it was a 26-liter board, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna grab this wing and go. And of course, the first day, like, I ended up on this reef swimming like completely covered in cuts by the end of it. I ramshackled my foil just because I was like, went out at a spot that was a challenging spot where if you don't get up and go, you end up the wind pushes you onto this reef. And I felt so much rage. I was like livid.
Mike, he didn't ask the questions on what he should do wing foiling.
But then, the next time I was like, and like that day I called up my buddies, I was like, this sport sucks. I hate it. Never doing it again. That's the dumbest. And then a few days later, I was like, all right, let me try, like a 60-liter board at an easy spot. And obviously that worked out a lot better. And then I kind of slowly worked backwards down to my smaller boards. But yeah, that first day I was so frustrated and so pissed because I thought I should be able to do it. I'm like, I know how to do these sports. Like, I know how to kite and windsurf and foil. Like, I got this.
I love it. I think it's great that you're sharing that, Jess, because a lot of people think like, some of the best watermen in the world, they don't ever fall. They don't ever screw up. They don't struggle. They're just good. And I would say far from that, I think they probably struggle and fail more, and they learn from it and keep going.
Dude,
i.e. why you're so good.
Yeah, I mean, one, it puts it into perspective. I mean, for everybody out there trying to learn how to wing foil, when you come from no experience in wind, no experience on the water, that just like, now you have maybe a better idea of like why is it so hard. Like it's hard for everybody. But Jesse, what happened since like that time where you were like, this sport like sucks, it's stupid, there's no reason why I would do that, to now you love it? What changed?
I mean,
He got off the reef.
Yeah. I figured out very quickly how to ride to my skill level. So yeah, the first few sessions after that, I went out at really easy spots and tried the easiest gear I can find, which I would say is so essential in any of these sports, is starting with beginner gear. And nobody wants to say beginner gear because they don't want to be considered a beginner, but it is so much easier when you're on easy gear, and then all of a sudden you can progress your riding style so quickly and then move on to that more advanced gear. But yeah, my mistake wing foiling was trying to start on advanced gear, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
Very well.
What
We
is
have
your
a- Go ahead.
what
Gwen.
is your favorite part of wing foiling? What would you say, like, this is the one thing that makes wing foiling to you like you love it?
I mean, since I started riding a high aspect wing in waves, it is the coolest. And especially here, like on Maui, it's pretty awesome because I can go down to Hokipa and I can launch at this legendary spot that we're not allowed to launch a kite at, but you can go out with a wing and ride super long waves all summer long when there's, the conditions aren't really that fun for kiting. The waves are pretty small, it's kind of gusty, and none of those things matter. And I can just, make turn days that normally wouldn't be that exciting for kiting into incredibly fun days winging.
Well said. Very well said. We had a hot topic question come in, which I don't know if you're comfortable answering it or not, but I'll just throw it out there. King of the Air, is there a reason why you pulled out of it this year or not? And you don't have to. I'm not putting you on the spot. I don't want to be.
No worries at all.
I just, it's one of those. I know a lot of people. Everybody's a fan. I'm a huge fan. Ruben's a huge fan. A lot of people are fans. So we're just curious. My guess is you're letting everybody have a chance to actually win. But feel free. We'd love to hear your answer.
I mean, it's a very loaded question, and once again, this thing can come back to an earlier concept where, one, the most important thing is that my wife, Juliet, or my fiance, I should say, is giving. Hopefully, we'll see what happens, but is due to give birth around that time. So that, no matter how I felt about the event, I can't miss that. And then apart from that, there's been a huge part of me that has looked at this event as my life for so many years. And since, like, I don't know, I'd say I was maybe a little bit lost in 2011 and 2012 when I kind of finished competing on the freestyle world tour, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then King of the Air came around in 2013 and I won it. And I was immediately like, this is me. This is what I want to do. This is who I am. And for 8 years, I battled with it, and I made it my entire life where, the entire year I'm training for that. And I have training blocks specifically built for King of the Air. And it my year revolved around it. And I don't know, when I won it in 2020, I basically kind of so many things fell into place, and it'd taken so many years to come up with the winning recipe and the winning mindset. And when I'd done that, I was kind of felt a sense of accomplishment and completion. I won it in 2013, and then I won it again in 2020, and I felt like I had done what I set out to do. So my desire to go back there has waned a little bit from that. I'm stoked to do it, but do I feel like I need to? Not necessarily. And this year, if I asked myself what sounded the most exciting, it would be to embrace Jaws and to embrace big waves, because for the last 8 years, I've tried to do both King of the Air and Jaws, and it's hard to really commit to one or commit to both because the other one is always there. So this year, I just felt like looking at all of these different things, especially with my injury too, where I know that I feel really strong right now, but I had 6 months off the water, and now I still need to respect that my leg is strong, but everything takes a long time, and I'm not, let's say, as trained up on big air as some of the other riders. So I just felt like if I did go, I would be forcing it on so many levels, which is the exact opposite of my winning mindset. When I won it last year, it was because I just relaxed and I knew that I could get last place and it was still going to be a great day. I was still going to come in and have super awesome sponsors that loved me, have my family that was right there on the beach. Like, it was still going to be the best day ever. And being able to relax that much gave me kind of the confidence to like look at this and like not get nervous, not get, all like freaked out, and just do exactly what I wanted to do. So yeah, I guess if I went now, I would be doing the opposite of what I learned. And this year, I'm like, I'm gonna do what feels right. And I don't know. I sure think there's a possibility that I'll end up going there again in the future. But right now in this moment, I'm doing what I think is right.
I think that's spot on. I would say to, well, myself speaking for all the kite surfers out there, and I'm sure everybody agrees, Jesse, you are truly one of the most innovating, talented, spectacular people to watch, who paved the road for what big air is today. And I don't think you have one more thing to prove, and you've proved it, and whatever else you do from here on out only is going to be spectacular. And we know that with Jaws and family, and I truly believe that. I mean, I've seen some of your most magical moments in life where you flew for like 30 seconds in San Francisco, and then one race I was leading, and then you passed me, and all I did was jive 400 times so that you would fall, and you never fell, and you still won. I was like, I'm gonna make him fall, and he never fell. But you always had that positivity. You're the kid on the beach that everybody wants to be around. You always have that energy. And so saying that, my kind of last question is, we kind of wind this thing down. If there was some one piece of advice you could give to an up and comer kid, athlete, looking to perfect themselves in a sport, what was the biggest lesson you've learned in all these years? Is there something that's like that you believe works or can help them to hopefully succeed in what they want to do?
I mean, it always comes back to kind of the same thing to me, is it's the mindset, and it's like the fundamental mindset that you create in your sport that can be translated to any aspect of life. And that's why I think that people who, let's say, like a world champion athlete, can relate to super successful businessman or an entrepreneur, is because even though they've completed such radically different things, they did it using a very similar mindset. And that's why I feel like I connect with you guys, is because we connect with this idea of, okay, to do something that we want to do, it's just a series of steps. And if you have, like, let's say, you build in, for big wave surfing, for example, you build in a few safety elements where, okay, if something goes wrong, step number 1 is release your kite. Step number 2 is pull your inflation vest. Step number 3 is hold your breath. And just like, you go through this series. And if I always have a jet ski rescue driver where we've, kind of created a plan beforehand, and then you kind of look at it and you're like, yes, it's dangerous, but I'm taking every safety measure I can, and I'm trying to maximize my success rate. Then I feel like you can embrace where you are, because you can rest assured that, okay, no, I have my safety plans. I don't need to be scared, because if something goes wrong, it's covered. then you can be there in the moment and really embrace what's going on. And sure, things might go wrong, things might go right. It doesn't really matter because you have that safety measure, and whatever happens, you're gaining experience. And then from that point on, it's just being able to like soak it all in, relax, recover, and do it again. And if you have that mindset and you have that flow, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you'll end up progressing.
So for Gwen, if he's doing front rollers, he's cutting his lines. He should just have a replacement set of lines so he's prepared.
I need to have Damien under, like, ready to catch me.
Yeah, well, I mean, that and you should, I don't know, analyze why you're cutting your lines.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's to me one of the funnest aspects of really technical like freestyle is looking at your rotations and getting to a point where it's like a chess game or like this puzzle that you're putting together, and you get to the same point every time, and it's like this for me the kite loop double half cab mob is such a challenging trick, and that took years, but it was fun to like break it down and analyze. I get to the same spot and then I crash, or then something goes wrong, and to figure out how to get one step closer to the next phase. And that to me is so exciting when you get to break it down like that.
And that's the drive that you can see. That's why you're so talented. And that's the same drive, just like you said, in the entrepreneur. So I agree with that. I think that's spot on. Gwen, you have any last little question for the legend, the one and only?
I mean, thank you, Jesse. I love that like you are like following your heart and you are not letting, like your decision be affected by external factors, what people think, what people say. So I really like respect that, admire that. So thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Oh man, absolutely. I mean, it's at the end of the day, like I've experienced this in a very cool way where I look and let's say, I'm kiting with Richard Branson, or, you guys e-foiling with Will Smith, or somebody who so many people in life look at as rich and famous and has everything. And I don't know, kind of realizing like when we're out on the water riding, it doesn't matter how much money you have. And then let's say you're riding with the current freestyle world champion who's doing the most amount of crazy twists and spins and whatever. And you look at him and it doesn't matter how many twists and spins he does. If the guy cruising on the foil has a bigger smile and is having more fun, he's actually winning this session. And that's where you kind of, you break it down and you're like, like the whole goal of this doesn't matter who you are, what's going on. It's to have fun. And that's, the only thing that I'm after. And that's the only thing that I want to share and promote, because, if you're out there to try to land a gnarly trick, like who actually cares if you're not having a good time? Like, I don't care, like, whatever, and that's why I want to go and kite with you two, is because it's now a competition between the three of us of who can have the most fun.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. So on that note, look, Jess, you're spot on. You shared a wonderful message to everybody out there. And I would say everybody out there, look this human up, Jesse Richman. We'll put all his links in the description. But as far as, he kind of said something at the end there, and he's out to have the most fun. Truly, Jesse has always been the kid who is having fun, no matter what it is. And I think that makes you very talented because of that reason. You enjoy what you do. And I think we appreciate you sharing with us and everybody out there that you're not scared to make big decisions, like maybe missing one of the biggest events, because truthfully, you've already made your statement. You've succeeded. Now you got another step, whether it's Jaws and family and who knows. And I think that's how you'll be super successful in everything you do in the future. And we're just super grateful to have that message to everybody. And I mean, it's been way too long, kid. And I absolutely admire you. I remember you when you were just such a little dude, and now look at you. I mean, I watch you at Jaws and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's just mind blowing to me. So, one, we wish you super amazing, healthy birth and your future with your family and your next endeavors at Jaws. I can only imagine Kai Lenny's and all those people get ready, because if Jesse puts his mind to it, oh boy, it's going to be pretty exciting. So we'll be watching you this year for sure. And just thank you so much for your time, Jess.
Oh man, what a pleasure to join you two. And I feel bad because I have so many questions that I wanted to ask you guys, and I was just too busy talking the whole time. So thank you guys for having me on the show, and I appreciate what you both are doing for the sport, and just as humans. I don't know, being really good people is inspiring and exciting to be around. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. So on that note, everybody, surround yourself with good people like Jess, and go live your best life, and whatever it may be, whether it's riding a bike, it doesn't really matter. Surround yourself with good people, and a lot of good things can happen. So make sure to look this dude up, support him. He's one of the coolest guys on the planet. And we'll be watching you this year, Jess. And thank you so much for being a part of the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.